They've been called America's first serial killers. In 3 years, 2 men murdered their way from the Carolinas to Mississippi, and most of the people they killed had nothing worth stealing. That's the part no one has ever been able to explain. They were so violent that a cave full of river pirates, the outlaws and thieves who robbed the boats coming down the Ohio, ran them out for being too savage even to keep around. They became the men Western Kentucky would never forgive. Welcome back to Dark History of the Jackson Purchase. Big Harpe and Little Harpe. And here's the strange part. Almost nothing about them can be proven. Not that they were brothers, not their faces, not even the number everyone quotes. Even the phrase, America's first serial killers, is a modern one, not something anyone called them at the time. But strip the legend away, and what's left is still the darkest true story on the early Kentucky frontier. Start with what we can say. 2 men came west out of the Carolina backcountry in the 1790s, calling themselves brothers. Micajah, known as Big Harpe, and Wiley, known as Little Harpe. Historians think they were more likely cousins, from Orange County, North Carolina, but that's inference, not a court record. The family were loyalists in the Revolution, though the battles the legend puts them in, Kings Mountain and Cowpens, rest on one old man's memory rather than a muster roll. They came out of Tory country, came west, and somewhere on that road turned into something the frontier had no word for yet. From about 1798, they cut a trail through the Carolinas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Illinois, and finally Mississippi, in barely 3 years. Other outlaws robbed, and the Harpes robbed too. When they were caught, they had 8 horses and stolen plunder on them. But they killed far past any profit, killing people who had nothing worth taking. That's the thing the record can't explain, and never will. The law got hold of them exactly once. In 1798, a Kentucky man named Stephen Langford was killed on the Wilderness Road, and the Harpes were arrested for it. The 2 murderers by the name of Harps, the newspaper called them, who killed Mr. Langford last winter. They were jailed, and in March of 1799, they broke out of the Danville jail and vanished back into the woods. A name, an arrest, a jailbreak. That much is solid. And then the killing started again. That spring, they turned up at Cave-In Rock, the outlaw cave on the Illinois bank of the Ohio, full of thieves and pirates. And tradition says the Harpes did something so brutal that the other outlaws ran them out. The story goes they stripped a captive and drove him off the bluff, for sport. That cliff story is exactly that, a story. Rothert, the one careful historian of all this, flags it as tradition, not record. But the bones of it hold. The cave's own outlaws wanted nothing to do with them. The river pirates had a limit, and the Harpes were past it. Back in Kentucky that August, they came to the cabin of a man named Moses Steagall. Steagall wasn't home. His wife was, and their infant child, and both were killed, and the house burned. A traveler staying the night, Major William Love, was killed too. I'll say that plainly and move on. But the frontier did not. A woman and a baby, murdered in a burning cabin. That was the killing Western Kentucky would not forgive. Within days, a posse was on the Harpes' trail, and Moses Steagall was riding in it. A posse ran the Harpes down in late August, 1799. A man named John Leeper got within range of Big Harpe and shot him off his horse. And there, in the woods of Muhlenberg County, Moses Steagall, the husband and father whose family had just been murdered, took a knife and cut off Big Harpe's head. As he lay dying, Big Harpe is said to have confessed to about 20 killings, not the 39 you'll so often hear. That larger number came later, from tallies and estimates, and the round figure the legend settled on. 20, from his own mouth, is what the record actually holds, and 20 is more than enough. They carried the head 35 miles east, to a crossroads near Robertson's Lick, in what is now Webster County, and set it where the roads met, as a warning. The body stayed behind in the Muhlenberg woods, and only the head made the trip, 2 different places a day's ride apart. And to this day that crossroads is called Harps Head, a road by that name, with a Kentucky historical marker standing on it. And the one contemporary document that survives, a newspaper notice of the capture, is on the screen right now. 3 women had traveled with the Harps: Susan Wood, Maria Davidson, who went by Betsy, and Sally Rice. They were captured and tried as accessories. And here is something better documented than almost any of the killings. All 3 were released. Betsy Davidson married a man named John Huffstutler in 1803, moved to Illinois, raised a family, and died old. Whatever they had seen, and they had seen the worst of it, the record lets them go home. But one Harpe was still alive. Wiley, Little Harpe, slipped the posse in 1799 and vanished down the river. He took a new name, John Seton, and joined Samuel Mason's river pirates on the Natchez Trace. The same Mason, the same gang. And when the authorities put a bounty on Mason's head, Little Harpe and an accomplice who went by James May turned on their own boss. They brought in a severed head, swore it was Mason's, and claimed the reward. Whether they actually killed him, and whether it was even his head, was disputed at the time, and Mason's own wife said it wasn't him. But that bounty is what finished Little Harpe. Standing there for the money, he was recognized, and Kentucky men named John Seton as Wiley Harpe. He was arrested, tried, and on the 8th of February 1804, hanged at Old Greenville, Jefferson County, Mississippi. And just like his brother, they set his head on a pole. The river had swallowed the last Harpe. So how much of the Harpe legend can we prove? Less than you'd think. Not that they were brothers, not their faces, not the famous number, not the cliff at Cave-In Rock, or half the horrors storytellers piled on since. What survives is smaller than the legend and harder. An arrest, a jailbreak, a burned cabin, a manhunt, 2 severed heads, and a crossroads that still carries the name. And that part, the part we can prove, is bad enough. That's the whole point. You never needed the legend. The truth was already the darkest road in Kentucky. This has been Dark History of the Jackson Purchase. The River Pirates episode that set this one up, on Mason, the Cave, and the Natchez Trace, is on our YouTube channel with the rest of the series. Just search Dark History of the Jackson Purchase. I'll see you on the river.